If you hear this from someone, they're a cheater. You ever have that moment? Your gut tightens, your heart skips a beat, and something just doesn't feel right. You're listening to someone speak, but instead of clarity, you're getting fog. Instead of answers, you're getting riddles. And you wonder, am I being lied to? Here's the thing. People don't always say, I'm cheating. But they don't have to, because cheaters, they speak in code. And if you know how to listen, you'll hear it loud and clear. There's a phrase cheaters use that gives them away every time. And it's not what you think. It's not, it didn't mean anything. It's not, it was just a mistake. It's not even, why weren't exclusive? It's this, you're being too insecure. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. Really let that land. Because someone who's honest, someone who's loyal, someone who respects you, they don't dismiss your intuition. They don't minimize your feelings. They don't gaslight you into thinking you're crazy for picking up on their shady behavior. They lean in. They say, let's talk. What's going on? How can I make you feel safe? But a cheater, they flip the script. They put you on trial. They make your curiosity look like jealousy. Your boundaries become control. Your self-respect becomes drama. And why? Because if they can make you the problem, they don't have to take responsibility for their actions. But it doesn't stop there. Here's another one you'll hear, I just need space. Now don't get me wrong, space is healthy. We all need it. But if someone keeps using space as a smokescreen for disappearing, dodging accountability, or living a double life, that's not space. They're just giving themselves room to cheat. And the most dangerous one? I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. That sounds noble, right? Sounds protective. But what it really means is, I didn't tell you because I wanted to keep doing it. Because if the truth was going to hurt you, and they kept doing it anyway, the truth was never their concern. You were. And here's what I want you to remember. Cheating isn't just physical, it's lying, it's emotional betrayal, it's secrecy, it's disrespect. You don't have to catch someone in bed with someone else to know something is wrong. You can catch it in the patterns. You can catch it in their excuses. You can catch it in the way you start to feel small every time you question them. The way you start to doubt your own mind. That's not love. That's manipulation. So if someone's making you feel crazy for noticing the truth, they're already cheating on your peace of mind. They're already cheating on the trust. And that's enough. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You don't need more chances. You need to choose yourself. Because the moment someone tells you, directly or indirectly, that you don't have a right to feel what you feel, that is the moment you walk. Not because you're insecure, but because you're finally secure enough to say, I see what this is. I deserve better, and I'm done. When someone cheats, they rarely come out and admit it. They don't say, I've betrayed your trust, or I did something wrong. Instead, they flip the conversation. They make you feel like you're the one who's overthinking, overreacting, or being paranoid. And one of the most common phrases they use is, you're being too insecure. It sounds so simple, but it's deeply strategic. It's not just an offhand remark. It's a way to shut you down, stop the questioning, and make you second-guess yourself. Because if they can convince you that the problem is you, they no longer have to explain themselves. They no longer have to confront their own actions. They don't need to take responsibility for the shift in their behavior, the secretive phone habits, the late replies, or the sudden emotional distance. The moment you bring up a concern, whether it's something you noticed or something you just feel, they quickly jump to questioning your security. And in doing that, they turn your gut instinct into something shameful. They turn your boundaries into flaws. But the truth is, there's a big difference between insecurity and intuition. Insecurity is built on fear that isn't backed by behavior. Intuition is a response to energy that doesn't feel right, patterns that don't line up, and inconsistencies that can't be explained. When someone is faithful and emotionally honest, they don't make you feel wrong for needing reassurance. They don't mock you for asking questions. They don't twist the narrative and make you feel unstable just because you notice something has changed. The person who deflects your emotions and immediately labels them as insecurity is often the one hiding something. They want you to stay quiet. They want you to retreat into self-doubt. They want you to lose confidence in your ability to read the situation so you don't dig deeper. And it works. Over time, you start to apologize for bringing things up. You start to suppress your curiosity. You start to feel like asking for clarity makes you needy. But it doesn't. Wanting honesty isn't insecurity. Wanting consistency isn't insecurity. Wanting to feel safe in love isn't insecurity. It's basic respect. The more someone insists you're being insecure instead of addressing your concern, the more they reveal about what they're trying to protect. Not the relationship, not your heart, but their secret. Cheating isn't always what people imagine it to be. It's not always two people in a room doing something physical. Most of the time, it starts way before that. It starts in the hidden text messages, the unanswered calls, the sudden shift in energy when you walk into a room. It begins in the emotional distance, the secrets, the moments that don't add up. And what makes it dangerous is that it hides in the gray areas, the spaces where there's no physical evidence but something still feels deeply off. Emotional betrayal is just as real, just as painful, and just as damaging as physical betrayal because it breaks the bond of trust, it shatters the sense of emotional safety, and it creates a silent war in your mind where you're constantly trying to piece together a story that keeps changing. When someone starts confiding in another person about the things they used to share with you, when they start getting emotionally close to someone else in a way that makes you feel pushed out, when they start turning to someone else for validation, comfort, and attention, that's not harmless. That's not innocent. That's emotional disloyalty. And the worst part is, society doesn't always take it seriously. People say things like, well, they didn't actually cheat, as if cheating is only defined by physical contact. But your heart knows the difference. You feel the disconnection. You feel the shift. You feel the absence of emotional intimacy, and it hurts just as much. Cheating with the body is one thing. Cheating with the heart, the soul, the attention, that creates a deep wound because it often leaves you without answers, without clarity, and without the ability to explain why everything suddenly feels different. And the person doing it will often defend themselves with phrases like, "We're just friends," or "You're overthinking it." But you know when you're being replaced. You know when the emotional energy that once belonged to you is now being given to someone else. You know when your partner lights up for someone in a way they no longer light up for you. And when that happens, it's not just a small deal. It's not something to brush aside. It's a form of cheating that leaves scars because it makes you feel like you weren't enough to hold their attention, like someone else became more exciting, more emotionally fulfilling, more important in all the ways that used to belong to you. When someone says they need space, it can sound reasonable, even healthy. Everyone needs a moment to breathe, to reflect, to be with their own thoughts. But there's a difference between needing space to grow and using space to disappear. When someone constantly asks for space every time they're questioned, every time accountability is brought to the table, every time emotions are high, they're not asking for space to heal. They're asking for space to avoid. They're using that distance, not reflect, but to create a gap wide enough to live a double life, to keep secrets, to do things they don't want you to see. It's a classic move. The moment the pressure of being transparent becomes too uncomfortable, they retreat into silence and call it self-care. They vanish emotionally and physically and say they just need to figure themselves out. But in the background, they're living a life that doesn't include you. They're texting people you don't know about. They're keeping their phone face down not because of privacy, but because of guilt. And every time you bring it up, you're met with, "You're not respecting my need for space." That kind of response is not about needing personal time. It's about creating just enough confusion to make you back off. And slowly you start questioning your own standards. You wonder if you're being too demanding, too intense, too sensitive. But you're not. Wanting presence is not a crime. Wanting honesty is not too much. Wanting consistency doesn't make you clingy. The problem isn't the space, it's what's being done in it. It's the fact they don't return with clarity, with answers, or with more love. They return with less attention, less connection, less availability, and you're left to figure out what happened in the gap between who they were and who they've become. It's during that space that cheating often hides. It's during that time apart that messages are sent, plans are made, and boundaries are crossed. And it's justified under the umbrella of needing time. But real love doesn't take space to betray. It takes space to become stronger, to understand one another better, to show that love can survive even when emotions are complex. If someone is using space as a getaway car every time reality knocks, they're not protecting the relationship. They're protecting something they're not ready to admit. Something that often starts with deception and ends in betrayal without ever being seen clearly until it's too late, and gaslighting is one of the most subtle and dangerous tactics a cheater will use to cover their tracks. It's not loud, it's not obvious, and that's what makes it so damaging. It starts small with little comments that make you doubt your own memory, your own instincts, your own ability to interpret reality. You bring up something that doesn't feel right, and instead of a real conversation, you're met with denial, mockery, or a tone that makes you feel like you're making something out of nothing. You say, "You didn't answer my call last night." And they reply, You're always looking for problems. You say, "You've been distant lately." And they say, "You're imagining things." Every concern is twisted into a reflection of your supposed insecurity. And over time it works. You stop trusting yourself. You begin to doubt your own intuition. You begin to silence your voice. Because every time you try to speak up, the response makes you feel smaller, weaker, and more unsure of what you know to be true. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't just lie to you. It convinces you to lie to yourself. And when it's coming from someone you love, someone you trust, someone you're emotionally invested in, it's even harder to see clearly. You want to believe them. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You want to be the cool partner who doesn't overact. But deep down, something is screaming at you that this isn't right. And when gaslighting is used to cover up cheating, it becomes even more calculated. They need to stop asking questions. They need you to question your sanity more than you question their behavior. They need you to become so unsure of yourself that you hand over control without even realizing it. And the more it happens, the more you shrink. You begin to walk on eggshells. You choose silence over confrontation. You ball up your concerns because you don't want to be accused of being crazy again. And that's the trap. Because while you're shrinking, they're continuing. While you're doubting yourself, they're cheating behind your back, protected by the fog of confusion they've carefully created. And even when you catch them in a lie, they'll make you feel guilty for snooping, for overthinking, for even daring to suspect them. The spotlight never stays on them for long. It always gets turned back onto you. And that is the power of gaslighting in the hands of someone who's hiding something they don't want you to find. When someone says, "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you," it sounds like they care. It sounds like they were protecting your feelings. It sounds like love, but it's not. It's manipulation dressed as mercy. It's not about shielding you from pain. It's about shielding themselves from consequences. Because the truth is, if they really didn't want to hurt you, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. The action already caused the pain. Hiding it only delays the impact, it doesn't erase it. That phrase is a way to soften the betrayal, to make themselves seem noble in a situation where they were anything but. It creates the illusion that they were thinking of you, when in reality, they were thinking of themselves, their comfort, their reputation, their ability to keep living without having to face the truth they created. That sentence is not a confession. It's a performance. It's an attempt to control the narrative and downplay the damage. Because if the only wrong was not telling you, then suddenly the betrayal becomes a communication issue instead of a character issue. And that's what they want. They want to shift the focus away from what they did and put it on why they didn't say it sooner. But you can't wrap cruelty in kindness and expect it to disappear. You can't use silence as a form of love when that silence was the very thing that kept you in the dark, that prevented you from making informed choices, that allowed you to keep investing in a relationship that had already been compromised. When someone hides the truth to protect themselves, they're not being kind. They're being selfish. Because real love doesn't avoid hard conversations. It doesn't bury mistakes. It doesn't pretend everything's fine while the other person is living in false peace. Real love confronts, admits, apologizes, and opens space for healing. Saying, "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you," is often just code for, "I didn't want to deal with your reaction." It's about convenience, not compassion. It's about keeping things comfortable for them while you carry the emotional weight of a betrayal you didn't see coming. And when the truth finally surfaces, it hits harder, not just because of what was done, but because of how long it was hidden, how many moments were lived with a lie, how many times you looked them in the eye thinking you who they were when they already knew what they'd done and chose silence over honesty every single time. When someone makes you question your worth, your sanity, or your ability to trust yourself, they're already breaking something sacred, something deeper than just a relationship. They're breaking your peace. And that, in its own way, is a form of cheating. Because cheating isn't always about someone else being in the picture. Sometimes it's about what they steal from you while they're still with you. They take your security, your confidence, your trust, and they replace it with confusion. They do it slowly, subtly, through words that sound reasonable, but are laced with dismissal. You begin to feel like you're the only one in the relationship who's noticing the changes, the distance, the unspoken tension. And instead of validating your feelings, they make you feel crazy for having them. You start to silence yourself. You start to smile when you're uncomfortable. You laugh when something hurts. You give more grace than they deserve because you're scared of looking like you're overreacting. That's not love, it's emotional erosion. It chips away at you, bit by bit, until you barely recognize who you've become. And when they finally betray you, if they haven't already, you're so worn down, so filled with self-doubt, that it takes everything in you just to trust what you're seeing. That's how deep the damage goes. It's not just the act of cheating that breaks people. It's the months, sometimes years of slow emotional betrayal leading up to it. It's the way you start to feel like a stranger in your own relationship. It's the way you second-guess your instincts, your memory, your truth. And all of it is designed to keep you small, to keep you quiet, to keep you unsure. Because a person who is cheating on you emotionally or physically cannot afford for you to feel powerful. They can't afford for you to ask too many questions. They need you to stay confused just long enough for them to get away with it. So they cheat on your peace. They cheat on the calm you once felt with them. They cheat on the security that was once the foundation of your connection. They might not admit it, they might not call it cheating, but you feel it. You feel it in the anxiety that creeps in every time they leave the room. You feel it in the ache in your chest when they avoid eye contact. You feel it in the way you no longer sleep soundly next to someone who once felt like home.